What's up, y'all? Welcome to the channel. This is Jason, and in this video, this is a full course going over how you can build a whole chat room for you and your friends. You see here we have, these are all my accounts, right? So I'm just talking to myself, but this can be used by anybody who has the application. So you could put this on test flight and share it with your friends, or you could just download it to their device. And this is our app. It's a chat room. We're using Google Sign In to sign in. You could also add Apple Sign In the future if you wanted to. We're able to sign into our account, and then we get access to this whole chat room. What's going on? And yeah, we're gonna be putting this full app out. In this course, we'll be using Firebase. We're gonna be using Google Sign In and also SD Web Image to help us with the profile images. And you guys could drop any comments if you run into any issues while building this out. Let me know how it goes. I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's do it. We're gonna create our project, hit app. We'll call this chat room. We'll use storyboards. Well, we're not gonna use a storyboard, but we'll use storyboard Swift. You can uncheck core data, hit next, create. Now that our stuff loaded up, let's just go straight into some UI first. So we're gonna want in our application, we're gonna want a table view, UI table view. And we're gonna be using anonymous closures here. And what else do we need? We need a text field. We'll say text field, UI text field, another anonymous closure. Let's stamp these out. Let table equal UI table view, return table. In our table, we want to set translate auto resizing equal to false. In our table, we also want to register a cell. For now, we'll use the default table view cell. And then you do dot self. Then for identifier, you do cell. Anything else we need to do? We can set the delegate equal to self. That means we have to change this to a lazy var. And we do that because when this view controller is created, changing this to a lazy var is going to allow us to wait until the view controller is actually created. Otherwise, it'll be created at the same time. And if you try to do self here, it won't let you watch. Yeah, because self might not be available at the time. So now we can, and now we have to conform. We can do that down here. View controller, UI table views, delegate. Oh, and also let's do the data source as well. And so this would be UI table view data source, Command B. Let's create a text field. Let text field now. Go UI text field, return text field. Text field dot translate auto resizing equal to false. Command B. And then we need to bring in the required functions here. Let me put this panel away. And here we need to dequeue the reusable cell. So we'll say let cell equal table view. DQ reusable cell, identifier is cell, index path is index path. We can just return cell. We're missing one more. Number of rows in section. Let's return 5, and let's do text label.text hello. Command B. Now all we're missing is we need to configure our UI. So we're gonna call a function configure UI, private func configure UI. All right, and here we're gonna we're gonna add the table and the text view to the subview. Or text field to the subview. Then we need to do auto layout. Activate. And how are we gonna lay this out? So for our table view, dot top anchor equals, actually I like to bring in this one, just in case we ever need padding. But we shouldn't, at least not for the top anchor. Table view leading anchor constraint equal to view dot leading. Set this to 0, table view dot trailing anchor. Trailing anchor constraint equal to view dot trailing anchor constraint. Set this to 0. And for the bottom anchor, I'm actually going to set it to the text field top anchor, and we'll see why shortly. Or this seems to be top. Now let's lay out our text field. So text field, I'll do the leading anchor first. Let's copy this. Actually, this is what I like to do because it saves a lot of time, because all you have to do when you do this is just copy here and then make sure that your constraints are accurate. So the top is not accurate, and we're not even going to use the top for the text view. The leading is right, the trailing is right. Bottom anchor is going to be view.bottom. And we're going to do a height for the text field. Constraint equal to constant. Let's do 80. And let's set a background color. View.background color equal system background. Let's run this, see if we have any issues. All right, so our app loaded up, and this is what it looks like. Our keyboard is not here, it looks like. Let's add the text field dot background color. equal brown. Oh, so our text field is showing up. Oh, it looks like our keyboard doesn't pop up. Let's set up the text field, and let's keep the background color actually. But for now, let's set up the text field delegate self. So we set the text field delegate equal to self. That means we're going to change this to a lazy var. Command B, and we'll create another extension here. Extension ViewController UI text field delegate. Command B. All right, so we make our text field a little bit bigger, 100. If we write something in our text field, it looks very wanky, like it's hugging the border, right? So let's set up our text field to fix that. So what we want to do is we want to call text field dot left view mode. Set this equal to always. Then we call text view dot left view. Set this equal to UI view with a frame, and then you call CG rec. Nope, not this one. You want to make sure you bring in. All right, so you hit the left or the right key, and it'll bring up these options, and then you hit the one with CG float. For the X, we want 0. For the Y, 0. For this, we do 10. The height, 0. Okay, some other things is to account for in our text field is going to be the auto correction. Set this equal to no, and then also auto capitalization, none. Set our background color to system gray 6, and then return type key, we can hit send. Since it'll be a chat room, we'll hit send. Now let's run this and see if it looks a lot nicer. All right, that looks a lot better. So when we run the application, I don't like that if you type a lot, it does this with the text. So we're actually going to change this to a text view. We'll do text view, and that means this has to be UI text view delegate. And then in the text view, you don't have this. Then we hit run. Now if we have a lot to say, let's say the user has a lot to say, then yeah, it wraps around, and you can actually, if you do text view dot font, you can change the size. I'm not sure what size that is, but it looks very small. So I'm gonna do 16. And before you run, we can actually refactor, and this will change the name of text field everywhere. And then we can go with text view, and we can do the same here. Text view. All right, and now let's run this. All right, yeah, that's nice and bigger. The last thing we could do with our text view is we can add some padding actually. If we call text container inset, call UI edge inset, this one, top 0, left. In here we can do, let's do 4, or let's do 8 and 8. Let's see how that looks. Actually 8 here and then 0 at the bottom. Let's run this and see how this looks. Oh, that's way too much. Do 4 and 4. And here we'll do 2 and 2. There we go. This looks a lot better. All right, something I want to do is I want to create a send image view. It's going to be an image that's next to our text view that would just allow the user to tap it and hit send. So let's say let image view, UI image view. You always want to set translate auto resizing to false. Image view dot image equal UI image system name. I think there's one called paper plane, right? Yeah. Let's do paper plane and return image view. What color do we want to have on this? You do tint color. Let's just keep the tint color white. We'll keep it label for now. All right, so now we want to lay out the constraints. Let's copy this one since it's going to be fairly similar to the text view. Instead, you copy send image view. We need to add this to the layout. So send image view. The only difference is the leading anchor. Instead of a leading anchor, let's create a width anchor. Constraint equal to, let's do 100. So this is like a box. I'm gonna move this right here. And let's change the trailing anchor of this one to be image view leading. All right, so we're gonna change the width anchor to 50. Let's change the height to 101 because there's a very small gap between the image view and the text view. Let's add some padding on the right because it's hugging the right side too much. And here in the image view, we can set the background color equal to system gray 6. And all right, let's try to run this. Oh, and one thing we forgot to add for the image view is content mode, scale to aspect fit. Now we run this. It's looking good now. And now, one thing to note too is when our keyboard shows up, it covers our text view, right? So we need to account for that. And how are we going to do that? So in Swift, the notification center actually sends a message when the keyboard will show and when it will hide. So we can actually subscribe to keyboard events. We'll just say show hide. Subscribe to keyboard show hide, and this will be a private func. And all we do here is we call notification center dot add observer, no, dot default dot add observer self. For notification name, you need to call UI responder dot keyboard will show notification. Object is nil, and then the second one is notification. Then we need to call it again. This time for keyboard will hide. UI responder keyboard will hide. Which one is that one? This one. No. And then we need to create our selector function, our objc function. Say keyboard will show selector keyboard will hide. Now we're going to create these functions. Keyboard will show at objc func keyboard will hide. So when it shows, we're going to want to grab the keyboard height, right? And to do that, we're going to grab the keyboard frame. It's going to be a type CGRect. We're going to call info, call UI responder again, and this time keyboard frame end user key info, and then we're going to say as ns value. We need to wrap this in a parentheses actually, because we need to get the CGRect value, and this gives us access to the keyboard size. And in this function, we need to pass a notification in both of them actually, and that notification is passed to us from the notification center. So I'm gonna copy that, put this here, and that's where we can grab the info from. Notification dot user info, right? And we'll force unwrap it. So when the keyboard is shown, we're gonna want to change the bottom of the view and shift it up to the height of the keyboard. So to do that, we're gonna call self dot view dot frame dot origin dot y, and we're gonna want to set that to negative keyboard frame dot size dot height, and it's negative meaning it'll go up the y-axis. If this was positive, it would go down. And now we have to do something fairly similar in here, so we can just copy this over and we can change this to 0. Now let's run this and see what happens. All right, so hello, and let's show the keyboard. Boom, it shifts, bam. And if you see this little black thing here, it's because our view's background is system background, so that's what's being shown here. So if I'm gonna change the background to system gray 6, and I'll change the table view background to system background. Now we can run this. All right, yeah, it got rid of the black padding, and the keyboard shows up and it shifts. And if I go away, boom, boom. Hey, our UI is good. Our UI is good. Now, now we're pretty much done with this view controller. Well, not pretty much done, but now what we need to do is create our custom table view cell that's gonna handle each of these messages. So let's do that now. I'm gonna stop a simulator. You're gonna go to File, New File, Cocoa Touch class. This will be a UI table view cell, and then we'll call this cell message table view cell. Hit next, or you can call it chat table view cell. Yeah, let's call it. So I'm gonna rename this. Let's call it chat table view cell. And you can get rid of this stuff. We don't need it. We'll call it init super init style reuse identifier, and then you hit Command B, and we got to bring the required initializer. This is due to storyboard stuff. It just requires it, but we're not using storyboard in this project. All right, so what do we need in our chat table view cell? So we are gonna need, first let's create a static let identifier. This is just what we're gonna need when we register the cell. But in terms of UI, we're gonna need the message and a little profile picture. And actually, to make our UI look nice, we're gonna create a message, which will be a text label, and we're gonna put it on top of a UI view. So let's just let me create this, and then you'll see. So let bubble view. This will be a UI view. We're gonna use an anonymous closure just to keep it similar, like we did in our view controller. And then so we have our bubble view. Now we need our label. We'll call this a chat text label of type UI label. This equal. Let label equal UI label, return label, let view equal UI view, return view. View dot, we want to translate auto resizing equal to false, label dot translate auto resizing equal to false. Okay, and then on our bubble view, this is going to be like the bubble that the message is sent in, so we want to add a corner radius, make it look nicer. For our chat text label, for our label, You want to set number of lines equal to 0. That way it wraps and it's not just one long line or it gets truncated. And one thing we're missing too is we need our profile image view. This will be UI image view. Let image view equal UI image view. Return image view. Image view, and then we want to translate auto resizing again equal to false. Let's set a content mode equal scale to aspect fill. Oh, we should do scale to aspect fit since it's going to be a very small circle. Image view content mode clips. No, wait. No, clips to bounds equal true. Actually, let's do scale to aspect fill, see how that looks. Let's set a default image. UI name, system name, person. This is just the SF symbol. If you look up in here, it's under person. It's right there. Okay, now we can lay out our UI. So we're going to call configure UI. Create a private func. Configure UI. Okay, now we need to add all our UI to our sub. So first, let's add the profile picture to the sub view. Then we want to add the bubble view. Then let's add the chat text label. And now we need to do our good old layout constraints. So I want the mesh of the profile image to be at the top right of the bubble. So, and we're gonna add a little padding. So actually right here we just need top anchor. Let's add a padding of 4. And then from the leading, let's add a padding of 4. We might change that in the future. Profile image. And now we're gonna add a width and a height. Let's make this, let's do like 32. Again, this might change. We're gonna lay out our chat text label first because our bubble view layout is gonna depend on the layout of the chat text view or the chat text label. So top constraint. Let's do 8 actually, and let's change this to 8. So then next we want to do for the chat label, we want to do the bottom anchor. And that'll be the same. This time we do -8 since it's the bottom. And then chat text label, we're going to do the width anchor now. And we can actually use less than or equal to the constant. We'll do 300. And that way if the message doesn't require that much space, it'll chunk it down and reduce the size. And then our bubble view, top anchor constraint. This will all depend on the top anchor. Let's do -8. Leading anchor constraint, chat text label, -8. It's bubble view. Then it's a trailing anchor constraint. This time it's positive since now we're doing the inverse because we want our bubble view to wrap around the text label. All right, let's add a default text actually so it all right, let's add a default text for the view. Let's add a default background color, system blue. So if you guys notice for the chat text label, I skipped the trailing and the leading anchor, and that's because it's gonna depend on whether it's being sent by the current user or somebody else in the chat room. So to account for that, we need to create some instances of NS layouts. We'll call this leading, and this will be NS layout constraint. This will be a var trailing NS layout constraint, and we can initialize those values here. So we'll say leading equals chat text label leading anchor constraint. All right, something I just realized is we also need to do this for the profile image, right? Because if it's sent by the user, then it has to be on the user side. If it's sent by somebody else, it has to be on the other side. So we're gonna call this chat, or we'll say text leading, text trailing. Copy these, and then we need to create one for image leading and image trailing. So this leading anchor can go away. And now this one is chat leading and chat trailing. But these are going to depend on the profile image. So we'll say image leading. This will be a leading anchor. And for this one here, we'll add the padding of 8. And now we need to also do the image trailing. And this anchor would be trailing anchor constraint to the trailing anchor. And this one you do -8. So for the leading anchor, these will be based on the profile image view. So, and this is not even the right. This should be leading, is it not? Or it's text leading, text trailing. So this will be based on the trailing anchor of the image view. Let's add some padding of 4. This would be based on the leading anchor of the image. Add some padding of 4. And we did a lot of coding, right, without running this, so it's gonna be interesting to see if this works. And now instead of registering the cell, we are gonna register a ChatTableViewCell. You can get rid of this, call identifier, and then we need to go here where we register, do chat cell.identifier, return cell. All right, we can run this. So what we're expecting to show up, well actually, we can't run this yet because we didn't activate our leading or our trailing. So the trailing, if we activate only the trailing, that means it's a user message. So let's do that. For now, we're gonna set these to true. So we're gonna do this for now, and then we'll flip it if this looks nice. Hopefully, if we did a good job, then this will be perfect on the first try. Oh, it's good. I mean, it could use some work, right? Like it, well, what it needs is it's some more padding, what it looks like. So what we need to do is we need to change these to 16, the top and the leading. 16, 16. Let's run that. I mean, the top and the bottom anchor, I changed them to 16. All right. Actually, nope, it wasn't that. I think these anchors, I need to change to 16 just to help with that spacing between the message. Haha. And it looks like our bubble is hitting our profile. So I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna add some more padding. The text, I'm gonna change this to 8. This should give us some more spacing from our profile image view, I believe. Yep, it gave us some more spacing. And now let's go back to our view controller, make a few changes. We can set table.separator style, I believe. Yeah, we can set this to none. And that gets rid of these ugly lines. All right, so let's try to get rid of this did select animation. So here in our table view functions, we'll call did select row at, table view, deselect, index path, animated, set it to false. And now before we run this, actually, I want to do a little test run. Let's add a bunch of gibberish and let's run it and see how it looks. Like if there's a long message being sent by the user. All right. Yeah, as you see, it's being capped off at 300. It can't get any bigger than this. And I don't like the spacing here. I'm going to fix that. And let's do Command Z because I don't want to keep that there. So for our trailing, I feel like 8 might be too far. Or maybe this message bubble is still too close. All right, so I changed these to 12. And now I need to add gibberish again. Sorry. I just want to test this. Yeah, that's a lot nicer. And I'm going to change this. I'm going to change the image to be 6 away. All right. Oh, and let's do false. Let's try to run this on the other side. So if this is being sent from the user, I should have changed the color, but it'll be fine. Oh, it's like we have an issue. So, oh, I know what happened. We don't need to change these to false. We need to change the leading to true. That was the issue. So the image leading. All right, so now we run this, and now we should see. Let's check this out. Bam! It's working. And 300 looks a little wide, if I'm being honest. It's a little bit too close. So let's do like 260. Create a function, call it configure for message. We need to pass in a boolean is user. Actually, that's all we need to take into account. So if it is user, oh, I forgot to add that. So if it is user, we want to do something else. So if it's a user, we want to add that part here, and then we need to change the bubble view's background color to system. Let's do system gray for now, and then we could copy this, paste it in here. You want to set the trailing equal to true if it is a user. The bubble background equal to system blue. Okay, and what else are we missing in here? We're missing actually the message, right? Duh. You need the message that you want to pass into the cell. We're going to call this function for each cell, so we want to make sure we have the message, and that would go under chat text label, text equal message. And right now we're not going to do it, but in the future we'll probably pass in the profile picture into this function and set it in here. But we're not doing that, so let's get rid of the gibberish. And technically we can get rid of this line. I'm going to leave it there for now. And so what do we need to do here? So actually we need to do some changes to actually make this work. So we need to create a guardlet because we're going to cast this cell as a chat table view cell. That will give us access to this configure for message function. And if this fails, we're just going to return a UI table view cell, default one. And you see now if I call cell.configure for message, it passes in the message and then the boolean. And if you want to test this, we can create an array, call it mock data. All right, I'm back and we're here with these lines. And actually, I told ChatGPT to generate these for me. So shout out to AI. They're coming for me and they're coming for our jobs. All right. And then what do we want to do? So we can call mock data dot count, and we can say, we could do some trickery here where if index path dot row, we're going to use the modulo operator, modulo 2 equals 0. This basically means if it's an even index of the array, we're going to say that it is the user, else we're going to say it's not the user. So you do mock data index path. We should actually just create a variable for the index because we're going to be using it a bit. So this will be index. This will be dot. Oh no, you don't need dot. It's just index. We'll say this is the user. You copy this and then you just say false here. Now let's run this and see how it looks. Oh, this one doesn't. It looks good. Kind of rough on the eyes. I think it might be this, but it is kind of rough on the eyes. We'll change that in a second though. We need to work a little bit on our UI. I don't like that. I don't like that gray background, to be honest. I don't like it that much. System gray 6. And let's change the tint of this image view. Tint color. Change it to white. Or label. The blue is a little rough on the eyes. Alright. I like it. And then let's try to type something. The Command K. Alright. Boom. So let's actually take into account when the user hits send on a message. So to do that, we're gonna have to do a few things. So we're gonna have to make our image view is user interactable. Set this equal to true. We will also need to say we need to create a gesture. UI tap gesture recognizer. Target is self. Action is selector. Did tap. What should we call this? Did tap send. I'm thinking too hard over here. So image view dot add gesture recognizer. We just add our gesture, and we're getting the error because of the self. We won't get an error. We'll get a warning, and you might run into some issues. So let's use a lazy var. Now let's create our did tap send function. So let's see. And one thing we're gonna do, let's create a mark. To do that, all you need to do is do dash mark, and then hit the colon and the space. And then this will be keyboard events. Alright. We can actually set up our objc function above this. So objc func, did tap send. So when the user hits send, we're gonna grab whatever text is in the text field or text view. We'll say text message equals text view dot text. And let's create let's add a condition where it has to be more than 2 characters. That way it's like you don't have spam, right? Because why are you sending 1 character? Maybe an emoji, but even then, this will help reduce spam, hopefully. And all we want to do is, right now, all we'll do is just append this to our mock data. And once we do that, we can say text view dot text. We can clear it out, and we need to reload our table view actually, since we have a new message in our array. And let's try to run this and see. Something interesting you'll probably notice is right now, if let's say I add something, so hello there, boom, our app kind of breaks. And that's because over here in our ChatTableViewCell, when we activate these trailing anchors, we have to unactivate these, or not unactivate. Well, basically, yeah, we have to unactivate and set these to false, the opposite side, basically. So when we want to activate only the trailing, we have to set the leading to false, and vice versa. So when we want to activate the leading, we'll set the trailing to false. And now if we run our app, we should get no errors when we add a cell. All right, so now I'm running this with the changes we made, and how about now, question mark. And there we go, yay. And the formatting is still, oh, and something interesting is, if you see here, when you send a new message, it doesn't scroll to the bottom. So to get that animation, we need to use TableView.scroll to, and what we need to do to grab this index path is we need to create an index. We need to create an index path, and we can use row and section. So the row would be mockData.count -1 section 0. We pass in that index, scroll to bottom, animated to true, and now let's run this. So testing, 1, 2, 3, hit send. Again. Oh, hey, you saw that little scroll? Scroll question mark? It does. That's neat. All right, so it's pretty set. The only thing now is like if on the keyboard, when you hit send or if you hit enter, nothing happens. And it looks like that could be beneficial or not, right? Because like if you hit enter or return, maybe you do want the user or the message to be sent, or maybe you don't. That's up to you. I know some applications require you to use shift enter to go to the next line. All right, so let's implement it. So when we hit enter, the message is sent. So we need to call a function should change. So to detect when the user hits return, we're gonna use this function should change text in, and we want to check if the text equals new line. Actually, this one. If this is true, then we want to call did_tab send and hit return false, and this is return true. This function is called when the text changes in the text view, and when the user hits return, this is called. This is when the user hits return. This is called. So this is why we're sending the did_tab or did_tab send function, and we're returning false so that it stops changing the text. All right, so let's hit test send. All right, and should we resign user keyboard? We can. It's up to you, to be honest. This part is personal preference. So when it did_tab send, we'll make sure that text view resign first responder. So then this is up to you how you want to handle this, because if you want to allow, or if you want to let the user hit send on the text view, then you implement it this way. If not, you want to, if you just want to use the image view, like on the messages app, like iMessages, and because in iMessage and the keyboard it's only return, so then you would get rid of this, and you wouldn't even implement this function, and you hit and the text view would be return, which I think is the default. Yeah, so it depends on how you want to implement it. You can go with send or with return. And now let's run the app one more time. All right, so I think we're good to go with the UI. I don't see any issues for now. Now we're going to go into the Firebase part, where we're going to have to integrate Firebase into our app. We're going to have to integrate Firebase and also Google SignIn, because that's what we're going to be using in this project. First, make sure you go to firebase.google.com, make an account, register. We're going to add a new project. This project will be named ChatRoom. Hit continue. We don't need this. Let it load up. Then we hit continue. Once it's done, we're going to get set up with iOS, and we need to go to our app. We need to go to sign in and capabilities. We're going to go copy and paste here. Copy our bundle. Make sure you go here, copy this, paste it in there. The rest are optional. Then we need to download a plist, and we can drag that right into our project like this. Make sure you have copy items if needed. And then if you have a number at the end, like I do right here, I have a 6. You want to hit enter and then delete that, because your app won't work otherwise. Then we hit next, and we're going to use Swift Package Manager, so just copy this. All right, so we go to add packages, copy the URL in here. So I'm gonna select range. I was using next major version and I got like an issue, so I'm gonna just use range of versions and let it pick one. Sometimes we have some errors if use the most up-to-date version. I think we could do it. So for this application, let's bring in Firebase auth. Let's bring in database and Firestore. Let's bring in Firestore Swift. Might use that. Let's use, bring in these two. And I'll bring in storage just in case we use it. We probably won't use it, but that's the only one we're gonna bring in for now. So just click add packages. Now while those are being added, we can hit next. And we're using Swift, so we need to select this one. And now we need to go to our app delegate and import all this stuff. So I'll give it a second. So we import Firebase core and call Firebase configure. Hit Command B and give it a second to run, because we just brought in a whole bunch of packages and dependencies. So Xcode will take a second to load them all up. The packages are still indexing. I'm gonna try to run this and just see what happens. And hopefully your MacBook hasn't blown up yet. I know right now I have an M1, but when I had like an older version, I know right now it sounds like a helicopter is in my room. If I was trying to run all these packages. All right, so this has been indexing forever, and I'm gonna become an old man and die by the time it's done. So we're just gonna continue, and we'll get back to it once we finish setting up our Firebase. So we gotta go to authentication, get started. All right, we'll leave that for now, and now let's go to Firestore database. We hit create database. We can hit start in production mode, it doesn't really matter. Make sure you pick a place near you. You can't change that. And then we go to rules and make sure you set this equal to true, publish. This will allow us to read and write. And of course, if this is being done in production, you want to add some more security. And then we go to storage. I'm not even sure if we'll use storage, but we'll just activate it for now since we're here. And okay. And then we go to rules, just like database, and we set this equal to true, publish that. In our authentication, we can hit sign in method. We can add Google, enable, public facing name, chat room, support email. I'm gonna just pick my own. Save, give this a second to load. All right, to allow our app to support Google sign-in, we need to copy this. This link will be in the description. This just is a documentation from Firebase showing us how we can set up the Google sign-in. So we're gonna go to add packages, copy this in here, Google sign-in iOS. You wanna add the package. Give it a second. Let's go back to the documentation while that loads. So we're gonna enable Firebase in our project. Oh, so we'll do this in our app delegate. We'll import auth and Google sign-in. All right, so back in our Xcode, you hit Google sign-in. Now let's import it in here, and it's saying implement Google sign-in with these steps. Open your project configuration. Click on the project. So we want to look for reverse client ID in our plist. So go to info. Oh no, not info. This one. Reverse client ID, we're going to copy it, and it wants us to add it in our URL types, into our URL types. So we need to go here to our project. I believe it's under targets, under build settings. No, it might be under info. Under info, URL types, you hit plus, and here you can just copy the URL scheme, copy the key. All right, implement the open URL. So you want to implement this function in our app delegate. So we go to our app delegate, Command B, this should go away. And before we do anything else with our Google sign-in, I want to do some things. I want to get rid of our main.storyboards. We're going to get rid of it. So go here, hit delete on the main. Just click on it, hit delete. Search, and then in this filter, hit main, delete. And then search again, and then now they're all gone. Now we can delete this reference, move the trash. Now in our app delegate, let's create a window. So UI window, and window dot make key invisible, and then window dot root view controller equals. All right. So instead of doing this in our app delegate, let's just do this in our scene delegate. It'll make our lives easier. So in our scene delegate, we can just cut that, paste it here. And the only change we need to make is make this a window scene. And we write window scene here. We pass it in here, and then we can test this if we run our app. We'll close this. All right, so load it up. That means we're working without the storyboards anymore, which is great. So now let's create a new file. This is gonna be a view controller. We're gonna call this SignIn ViewController, and this is where we're gonna display the sign in with Google button. So okay, load this up, and let's go back to the documentation. So in our documentation, we already added it to our project. We already did this. We already configured. Now we're here. So we need to bring this into our presenting view controller. So let's create two functions: configure Google sign-in, and a function called configure button. And we need to import GID, or no, we need to import Google sign-in. And then we can create a button, GID button, or yeah, GID sign-in button. And let's just stamp out these functions: configure button, curly braces, and then you can just copy this, paste it here, and then you copy the name, paste it in there. We're gonna go back to here, and we're gonna grab this stuff. This is gonna go in our configure Google sign-in, and we can get rid of this garlet, to be honest. And what we could do, What we can do here is we can actually get rid of this and then just go to our plist and copy the client ID. Make sure you have the client ID copied, then paste it in there. And now this is set, and now we can add the button to the sub view. Button, we'll call this Google button, and then we'll say Google button translate auto resizing. Is it? Do we have access to it? Oh, I forgot to like capitalize the B. That's why I was having issues with the. And now it shows up, and we can do some simple layout. Activate. So we do Google button top anchor constraint equal view dot top. Actually, wait. Let's just center this along the view dot center X. Google button center Y constraint equal to view dot center Y. And what else do we need? To be honest, we could leave it like this for now because it has a default width and a height, I believe. And one thing we're missing on this button is we need to add a target. So when the user selects it, we're basically gonna trigger what they told us to do in the documentation. Did tap sign in. We'll say Google sign in case we add some other functions or other buttons. Did tap Google sign in. So in here we want to call this function here, which if you don't want to copy and paste, it's basically just gid sign in. We're gonna call our sign in dot shared instance, and then you just sign in with presenting. Hit option to bring in the completion. This is self, and then for the result, do result, and then you do error, and then I'm gonna bring in this garlet that they created for us. Actually, let's just bring in these two lines. Let's fix the formatting. All right, so we can print error with sign in here, and then we'll return. What else do we want to do? And we actually need to create a function, or we don't have to, but I'm gonna create one called sign in. And this function is gonna take in a credential. So we'll say credential. We actually need to import Firebase auth, and then we should have access to credential. It's auth credential actually. And we can pass this credential to our sign in function. And we're in a completion, so we need to call weak self. And let's create a strong self. So let strong self equals self. And now we can call this function strong self dot sign in credential. And all we have to do now is call auth sign in for cred. And then we have a completion here. And in this completion, what are we gonna have? So we have a result and we have an error. Garlet result equal result error equal nil, else return. And oh, it looks like we're missing, we deleted a curly brace. Command B. And now what we want to do is when the user successfully signs in, we want to transition the user to our view controller. And let's actually go and refactor this name. We'll call this ChatRoom view controller. And how do we want to handle that? So something we could do is here in our scene delegate, we can create a function called change root view controller. And this will be a view controller, UI view controller. And we want a garlet window equal window, else return. And we're basically going to set the root view controller to the VC that's passed in here. And we can actually create an animation as well, which will make it look a lot nicer. Just use this one and select this. View will be the window, duration, we'll do half a second. And options, this is what you want it, how you want it to look. So transition, curl up, curl side, flip from left, cross dissolve, flip from right, flip from bottom, flip. Let's do flip from left. But there's a lot of transitions you can do. Curve, ease in and out. Curve. Let's do that one. And then do nil. So in our sign-in view controller, when this is completed, we can actually call this transition. We have to just create a reference to our chat VC. So ChatRoom view controller. And then what we have to call to make this happen is we use some parentheses, and we need to call UI application dot shared dot connected scenes dot first dot delegate as a scene delegate. And then if you hit dot right here and then look for change view controller, we have access to that now. And now we can change to our chat VC. So command B, And let's run this on our device and see if this actually works. We didn't test any functionality that we just set up in our SignIn ViewController, so we're about to find out if we messed up. Well, actually, let's go to Scene Delegate. Oh, we're starting with the chat room. We need to start with the sign in. So let's run it again. All right, so load it up, sign in. All right, now we have our option to sign in. I'm gonna sign in off screen. I just don't want y'all seeing what I'm typing. And I'm not sure, I'm wondering if I'm gonna get like a Google security thing. All right, so I successfully signed in and we just got a transition. I don't like the way it looks, so I'm gonna go with a different one. Transition. Let's do flip from left. I like this one. But we're signed in now technically. All right, one thing we should add is a sign out button. So I'm actually gonna add it up here. Let's embed this in the navigation bar and just add it up here in the top right corner. So what we wanna do in our ChatRoom view controller to set up the navigation bar is we're actually gonna have to let's create a function, set up nav bar, and let's create this a private func, set up nav bar, and in here we need to call the navigation controller dot navigation bar, and usually you would call the navigation item, but we're gonna call the navigation bar because this navigation controller is the root view controller, so there isn't anything to go back to, so we have to use a navigation bar. Top item, we'll call this chat room for now, navigation controller, navigation bar, and then we need to call, and actually sorry, this is top item dot title. Then we're going to call top item again, but this time we're going to get the right bar button item, and we're going to create a UI bar button item. Use title style, yeah, use this one. We're going to call this sign out. Style plain. Target will be self. Action we do selector, and oh, let me scroll up, sorry. For our selector, we're going to create a function called didTap sign out. And this has to be an Objective-C function, so we're gonna do it right here under this one. That'll be JC func did tap sign out. And we should make both of these private. Okay, and now let's just print sign out and run our application. And actually one more thing I wanna do is I wanna add a tint color here to our nav bar, just so this title that we're gonna see here, so it'll be red. It's better UI, right? So the user knows that it's gonna sign them out. So it's gonna be, one thing I realized is in our scene delegate, we need to actually change this to our home or our chat room view controller, and we actually need to embed it in a UI navigation view controller. So we're gonna use this one, UI navigation controller, and then we'll call chat room view controller. And now and then let's copy this and set it up in here just for in the future. We'll have this set up, because this is supposed to transition to the chat room. All right, now let's run our application. Look at that. We have chat room up here up top, and now if we click sign out, it's saying sign out. So to handle our sign out, the UI side is easy, right? Because for our UI of our sign out, we can just copy this in our sign in view controller, paste it in here, and then this will be sign in VC, and then we're just gonna change this to the sign in VC. This will be sign in VC. All right, so this would just handle the UI, right? Because this would transition us to the sign in view controller, but we wouldn't have technically signed out the user. So to handle that, we need to use Firebase Auth, and let's actually create a new file. It's gonna be a Swift file, and let's call this AuthManager. And you just create a class AuthManager, and now we import Firebase Auth. Let's make this a singleton just to make things a lot easier. AuthManager. And if you want to make this a true singleton, you want to make the initializer private, so private init. And you could just leave this empty. This makes it a true singleton since you can't initialize it anymore. And one thing we can do before we handle our sign out is if you go to our sign in view controller, we have this auth function, which is technically this is an auth function that can go in our AuthManager. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to our AuthManager, paste it in here. You can get rid of the private, and now we'll have access to it in our sign in. All we need to call now is our AuthManager.share.signin, pass in credential. Oh, we need to import UI kit. Command B, this should go away. And now we can create a function called sign out. And to be honest, the sign out function is super easy with Firebase. just do sign out, and this throws, so that's why we have a try. And we'll just say this function throws, so you can handle it in the do catch in the view controller that you call this in. So okay, so that's what we'll do here. We'll create a do catch, and in this do catch we want to call try AuthManager.share.signout. If this succeeds, paste this in here. Else we're gonna print an error. And we're not gonna do much error handling in this video, but if you were error handling, you'd probably present like an error to the user, maybe an alert or something like that. Print error, signing out. Okay, now let's try this. Replace. Okay, I'm gonna sign out. Boom, and now we're at the sign in view controller. If I click on this, I should be able to sign in. Haha. We have this error because I clicked cancel. And now what should we do? So what we can do is, so now if we go to our scene delegate, in here let's import, I believe it's Firebase auth. Yeah. What we want to do is we want to check auth.current user. So if this, let's grab the current user from, so if let user equals current user, we'll do something, and then else we do this. So what do you want to do? So if we have a user signed in, let's present the chat bar or the chat room. Else, let's present the sign in. And let's run this, and we should get the sign in view controller because we're not signed in. Yep. So let's sign in. I'm gonna sign in. Oh, I'm already here. Hit continue. Transitions. Let's see if I close the app and open it. Let's see what happens. Ah, that's fire. Let's do it again. I want to see it again. I want to see it again. Hey, that's lit. And then if we sign out, sign in, and now let's try to close it and open it again. Sign in. So our user login and logout flow is pretty set. One thing we could do thanks to Firebase Auth is in our AuthManager, in this result, we can actually grab a user, and this would be result.user. And this user contains a lot of information, right? Like this user contains a photo URL, it contains a display name, email, metadata, phone number, all this stuff. And I want to actually pass this user to our ChatRoom view controller so we can update the profile picture. So let's actually, I'm gonna do something. So if you do command, if you command click on this, then show help, it's a user. So it's a type user. So now we're gonna go back to our chat room. On top of view did load, we're gonna initialize, and then we'll say current user, and then we'll pass in a user. And wait, so we'll have to import Firebase Auth to get access to this type user. I think now if we write user, yeah, it shows up. And we can create a var current user type user, self.current user equals current user. Then we do super init, and then in here nil, here also nil. We go back to our AuthManager, and if you do command B, you should get an error, right? Yep, missing argument, current user. And we just pass in the user here. And this is one way of doing it. You could just, if you didn't want to import Firebase Auth into this view controller, we could set up where we create a view model, or where we just pass in the download URL, because we could grab it from here and just pass it. Like if we do, like we could just pass in the photo URL or the display name, right? Whatever we wanted. But I'm just gonna pass it to this so we have access. So I'm gonna just pass in the whole user so we have access to everything. And then, oh, we have an issue with the require initializer. Just hit fix. And now what do we want to do? So now we have access to our user, which will have a photo URL. One thing I realized we should handle before we continue with our current user is our database. Because, I mean, our database is already set up. Like we set up the rules and everything, created the bucket. Go through how our database is going to be set up. So Firebase, which is, if you guys never worked with it, it's pretty neat, and like it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to create your whole database. And how the structuring works, so a collection, we're going to create a collection of messages, and you can think of this as like a folder, and within this folder we're going to have a document ID, and this document ID will have fields. And for our project, so the messages will be the collection, each document ID will be a message, and within each message we want to track the text. So whatever somebody sends, we want to track their photo URL if they have one, and that'll be a string. So just say google.com for now. We also want two more things actually. We want the UID of whoever sent it. So this will be some random blob. And then we also want the time. So we'll say created at, and we'll call this a timestamp, and we'll say it's right now. Save. And this is how each of these documents will look. So we'll have a created time, the photo URL of the user who sent it, their UID, and then the text they sent. And this is where we're going to query to grab the messages, and we're also going to post the new messages that users send. So let's do that in Xcode. We're going to create a new file, Swift file, call this DatabaseManager, similar flow to the AuthManager, and we're going to create a singleton just to make our lives easier. But in real production code, you shouldn't just use a singleton everywhere. There's, not that it's bad, but there's like use cases, pros and cons, depends on what you're using it for. But in our case, it doesn't matter, it's a small application. All right, so in our database manager, we want to fetch messages and send messages. So let's create a function for fetch messages first. So fetch messages, and let's use async just because Firebase supports it now. All right, so one thing we want to do before we start anything else is import Firestore. Make sure you import Firestore, not database. Let database equal Firestore dot Firestore, I believe. Yep, I think this is all right. Yeah, this is it. And in here now we can call this database, and we can call a collection. In our case will be messages. You hit dot again, and we should be able to fetch or get documents. And this is await, and let documents equal this. And now this is a snapshot. Actually this returns a snapshot. And then now we can create let's create a let docs equal snapshot dot documents. And this gives us an array of documents. We're missing a try here. And now let's create an array of let's do messages equal empty string, or yeah, an array of strings. And we'll have this function return an array of strings for now. Let's use a for loop, though you could use a map function, but we're gonna use a for loop since I feel like it's a lot simpler. I don't want to overcomplicate things. So messages, and actually before we call messages, we need to get the message. So that'd be data, and it would be text. We say messages dot append message. Oh, all right, yeah. So when this for loop is done, we're getting an error here because this is a type any, so we need to cast this as a string, and this would be optional. So what we can do is we can add some more, or you could wrap it in an if let. Let's add error actually, just so we know if it's an error. For now, of course, we'll fix this in a second, and then we can return messages, because once this for loop is done, we'll have an array of all the messages in our database. And it looks like we need to call async throws. Command B. This failed. Missing parameter called current user. Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. All right, so let's try to run this. I think we need to fix this issue. Oh yeah, we could just pass the user in here now when we sign in. And all right, so now we can try to test this. Before we do, I'm gonna add a few more documents. I'm gonna just do the text. Hi, bye, save, auto generate text, and I'm gonna let's copy some from the boy with the toys enjoys playing in the sun. Such a random sentence. Save. We'll just do 3 for now. And now in our ChatRoom ViewController, we need to create a function that's going to fetch these messages. So fetch messages. Let's create a mark. Fetch messages. Private func. Fetch messages. We can just call our database manager, and then we do share dot fetch, and this is an async function. To call an async function, you could make this function async, and then you'd have to call it in a task up here, but I'm gonna just call it in a task in here. So we call this function, and this function can throw, and it's an async function, so we need to call try and await. And this function gives us all the messages. Hit Command B, don't run it yet. If this builds first, it does. Now above our mock data, let's create an array called messages. This will be of type string. We could just call mock data and set it, because this is an array of strings, but let's keep them separate for now. So when we call this, we're gonna want to set messages equal to message, and let's call self here. Oh, I forgot the S. And one thing we're gonna have to do as well is we're gonna have to update our table view cell, right? Because we have new data. So we need to call, and we need to do this on the main thread, and this is asynchronous. So we need to call main actor run. We want to call self.tableview.reload data. And now let's implement our messages array into our ChatRoom ViewController messages.count. And so the message would be messages. All right, yeah, let's just change this to messages. Oh, and this has to be messages. That was, and see, let's search where we have mock data too. See, that's a good thing about searching. You would have missed that. Okay, now if we run our application, let's see what happens. Make sure we have our terminal open too to see any errors. It took a little second, so but they loaded up. Hello, it's me, the boy, and then hi, bye. All right, okay. And I don't think these are in any particular order. We'll fix that. We'll fix that later and down the line. But this looks very cool. And one thing we can do right now is we can actually get rid of this. You just need to go to the cell, and for the cell here, we can do it. Let's do it at the bottom. Cell.selection style equals dot none, and that gets rid of any time you select it. It just nothing will show up. Xcode will still know you selected it, but it won't show that little gray ugly box. When we fetch our messages, let's try to fetch not just strings, right? Let's try to fetch everything. And to do that, we need to create a model called messages or message, and it's gonna be a similar structure as this, and it's just gonna have these 4 properties. So let's go back to our Xcode and let's create a new group called managers, just to clean up our folder structure a little bit. And we'll put the managers in here. Okay, now create a new file, call this message, and in here we want to create a struct, call this message, and we want to make it conform to codable or decodable. And in our model, we're going to have a text, a string, we're going to have photo URL and UID, photo URL and a UID. Both of these are string, and the last one is a created at, which is a date. Command B, and this will build. Now we go back to our database manager. Oh, I hit X. So we'll go back to our database manager, and we can change this to return message. We'll get an error probably. And now we want to change this to message. We can get rid of this stuff. So now that we have our messages, we're gonna create another for loop, or yeah, we'll create a for loop again. And now we can say let our data equal doc.data, and we can actually create a decoder. Let decoder equal JSON decoder, and we could say decoder.decode. This will be message, this will be .self, and we actually need to do some changes here. So because this is not of type data, so we can pass in JSON serialization data with JSON object data. Command B, see if we have any errors. This needs a try, and if this works, then we'll have a message, let message. We'll have an instance of a message object since we decoded it to it. And now we just append this to the array. So messages.append. We try to build this, and we're getting an error because we haven't fixed where we called this. So this is returning messages, and now, to be honest, to fix this, all we have to do is change this to message. And now when we append this, so now we need to create a object here, message. This would be a text message. And the good thing about having the current user is you can get their photo URL as string, absolute string. All right, so this could be nil. So let's do some nil coalescing. The UID, we can grab it from the current user, UID. Created at date, we can just say date, which is right now. And this will append it. Now we have issues here. Cool thing we could do now is, and actually let's copy this just so we can have a reference. Configure for, we'll call this mock, and for message we'll call this message, and this will be of type message now. And here message.text, and if current user, so if is user do. For now, let's make this pass in a current UID to be a type string. So let is user equal, we do equal message dot UID. And the way we're going to write this is a ternary operator. So what this variable is going to do is, so if this, it's going to check this conditional statement. So if the current UID equals message.uid, we are going to return true, else is false, and that's just for this is user function, or variable, sorry. Now we go back to our ChatRoom ViewController, and we have some errors we need to fix. This gets replaced with message, Command B, and then down here we need to fix this function. We can comment this out for now. We'll probably delete it, to be honest, but for now we're just gonna comment it out. Configure for message. The message would be messages dot, not dot, wait. Let's uncomment index since we're gonna use it here, and then current UID, we'll just say current user dot UID. And if we run this, all of our messages should be on the opposite side since my account hasn't sent any message. Oh, we got our app crashed, terminated app due to uncaught inspection. All right, so it looks like we have an error here, and if I don't know if my head's in the way. It's probably due to the timestamp we have in our Firebase. Let me see. All right, so our source of the issue is our model here has a date, but in our database, we're trying to decode a timestamp from Firebase, which is slightly different. So let's do a different approach here. Let's just get each of these values from the data up right here. So let's say text is going to equal data as a text, and then we can cast this as a string, else error with text, and then what else is next? UID. Let's just copy this because we need it 4 times because we're just only going to have 4 objects, and this is okay since this is a small project. And what do we have? UID. Copy UID here, error with UID, and then the last one is photo URL, and this is created at, and this will be created at, and this is not a string, this is a timestamp. Now we can create a message equal message text photo URL UID, and then this will return just the current time if it doesn't have a timestamp, which is good or bad. Just created at, we call created at, and then we just have the date value, and this will automatically convert it to a date for us. Now let's try to run this again and see if it crashes. See if we can stop ourselves from crashing again. So our app load up, and it looks like everything's working because everything's on the opposite side. And one thing we can do here is in our fetch messages here, let's just call print messages really quickly, just so we see what it looks like. All right, and it printed here, and so this is the first message. Hello, it's me. It has the google.com photo URL, error with photo URL. There isn't one, there isn't. Yeah, these other ones don't have anything else except for text, so that's why you see the error stuff. And the timestamp is probably right now. All right, so that's pretty cool. Now let's go to our, and let's close some of these tabs. Let's try to implement where the user sends a message. So func send message to chat. Let's just say database, and let's use async throws. This function shouldn't return anything because it'll just throw if there's an error, and we don't have anything since we're just sending it. Okay, all right, so what we send, and actually I realized we need a message, right? We need a message that we want to send. So what we send, we want to send it to messages collection. So the collection will be messages, and then we can add a document. Yep, and this will automatically create a document ID for us. We just have to pass in the data. We could try to use some encoding properties for this to upload it to Firebase, but again, we're having some complications with like the date and the timestamp conversion, so it wouldn't be as smooth. So we're gonna do it like we did above, take into account each field. So let's create a message data, and this will be an array or a dictionary, and the first field is text. We can grab that from message.text. Then we have the photo, or we'll just do the UID, and that's the message.uid. And then what else do we have? We have the photo URL, which is the message.photo URL. And then we have the created at. And in here, we can call timestamp for date. and we can pass in the message date here. So that's not that bad. And then message date, add document. Yep. All right, so it's telling us to confirm that we want to have this be string to any, since we have more than one type in this array, or not this array, in this dictionary. Message data. All right, let's try to implement this in our application. We don't even need async throws. We could use the completion though, but for now let's try to run it like this. Send. Let's call our DatabaseManager .share.send message. Let's run this. So I'm also gonna open up my Firebase. All right, so our app loads up, and let's try to send a message. Well, I can't spell, but it's posted, and oh, we see right away. Will you marry me? Or Marty me? Rick. Let's try to send some more. Haha. Gibberish. Hey, it's cool. And let's what happens if we restart and try to fetch these? I don't think it's in order, right? Let's see. And actually, while we're waiting, let's look at these. Yeah, they all have the created time. They have my photo URL. Wow. Oh, and one thing I just realized is we have a photo URL now. So if we go back to our, and it doesn't, and yeah, these aren't in order too. So yeah, these aren't in order. And one thing we haven't accounted for is our profile picture. So if we go, we need to do that in our ChatTableViewCell. Here, when we're configuring it, let's open up Google. And if we Google SD web image, you open that, you hit code, because we need to bring in this package dependency. And you do that by going to File, Add Packages. You hit Copy, and then you hit this, and then you hit Add Package. I already did it. This will take a second to load. And then once it loads, just make sure you select SD web image. There'll be an option for a map kit, but you don't have to worry about that. And then you hit Add. It'll take a second to index. Once it's indexed, we can import it here. SD web image. And we can call our profile image view .image, and we can say, actually wait, no, we don't even need to call it .image. We can say SD set image with URL. And the user might not have a profile picture, right? Because this might be nil, whether they don't have one or whether it failed to catch for some reason, right? Like, so let's create a conditional. So if let photo URL equal message dot photo URL, might as well cast it as a string. I mean as URL. Do it in here. Since we're already going to be checking if there is one, we'll set it here. So we'll say photo URL. And we have it here because we want this done for all users, not just one user or this user. Yeah, now if we run this, take a second to load. And I don't like that. Why does it look like that? Scale to aspect fail. And we have no corner radius here. So it looks like that's what the issue is. Corner radius. Let's set the corner radius. So the size of this is 32. And what you want to, the size is like width and height is 32. To get a circle, you want to set it to half of the size. So 32 divided by 2 is 16. Math. And now let's see this bad boy. Come on, this should look good. We might want to change this to label. Since if we switch to light mode, this probably won't show up. Ha! That's me. Lit. And let's just add some more padding here to let's add 16. Because it's hugging the profile picture way too much. I don't like it. There we go. That looks nice. Bam, and our app is pretty set. What happened here? Let's test something. Test. Oh. Interesting. I think I know what we need to do. We need to call a function called prepare for reuse. And you want to call super prepare for use since it's overriding. And we want to nil out everything. So set this equal to nil. Well, to be honest, all we need to nil out is the profile image. And we can nil out, we'll do the text as well. Let's run this. Oh. Wait, I'm sorry. So, I'm like, oh, I did that. I realized it's because this is blank because we put google.com for the photo URL. But now let's see if this breaks if I send a message. Oh, it went away. Why? I think I know why too. I'm pretty sure this is going away. Well, part of the reason it's going, or the images is not refreshing, is because these don't have any. They don't have any other text field, right? Like they don't have a timestamp or anything, or they don't have a photo URL. So I'm gonna get rid of the ones without a photo URL. And what I'm gonna do as well is I'm gonna sign in on a different device. All right, y'all. So I downloaded it on my device, and I've been talking to myself, and it works perfectly fine once you get rid of those messages that didn't have anything. Which, if we go to our database manager, I think we still could have a case where the user doesn't have an image, right? So I think the best way to go about this is if message.photo URL does not equal our account. So if this is greater than 0, because I believe if we don't have anything in our photo, let's go back to ChatRoom. So yeah, like if there isn't a photo URL, we're just going to, so if it's nil, we're going to pass an empty string. So we can account for that here, and we can actually say if let message or URL string, we'll say it equals that, and then in here we can do that, and now we actually need to create a URL. All right, and that should be the correct way to handle it. Initializer if let is not a type string. Well, oh, I guess we don't even need this. Sorry. We can just say messages then dot photo URL. And here we'll just copy this instead. Command B. This built successfully. Now we're almost done. The last thing that's missing is, so when I send a message from a different account, our app isn't uploading or refreshing. So we need to account for that. And one thing I realized, we can get rid of this decoder. And we want to create a function, listen to changes. All right. So this will listen to changes. We'll be more descriptive. Listen to changes in database. We could say message database. And let's bring in combine. We're going to need that, because not only do we want to listen to changes, but we need a way to pass those changes to our view controller. And we're going to use combine to handle that. So we're going to create a publisher. And this will be, so we're going to create a publisher. Var, we'll call this updated messages publisher. And we can just set this equal to pass through subject, and we need to do the less than equal to. I forgot the name of that. And then we need two things. First, what we want to pass through the publisher, and then error if there is one. So what we're going to pass is a new array of messages. And so we're going to pass that, and then you just pass error. Then we want to make sure you do the parentheses. Now if we call database dot collection dot messages, if we go back to our database, that's the name of our collection. We can add a listener, a snapshot listener, this one, and in here we'll have a query snapshot, and in here we'll have an error. We can guard that documents equal query snapshot dot documents. Okay, and we want to make sure error equals nil, else will return. All right, so this will listen to changes in our database. And now what do we want to do is we're going to copy what we did up here, where we're converting our response, our documents, into our message type. And you could use encoding, but we didn't use it. We haven't used that in our application because there was an issue with the timestamp. In our message model, we're using date, and in here there's a timestamp, and converting that can be tricky. So we paste that in here. This is the documents. Right, now we have access to this message, and this is going to be an updated message. We just call our publisher, which will be message or updated messages. Publisher send, and you want to send the messages. And now that's being sent off. And it looks like we're using self. We need to use a weak self in here because we're calling our publisher weak self. So let's create a strong self for self. I forgot the let. Now we can call this here. All right, now we should be able to listen to changes. We have to call this function. So let's call it in here in our fetch all messages function. What should we call this? Let's just call it right here. Okay, now we go to our ChatRoom view controller, which is our main view controller for this project. And let's import combine. And one thing we need to create is to create a token or tokens. This is a type of set, any cancelable. You want to do that. Now here we can create a function called listen to, or we'll say subscribe to message publisher. There's a typo in there. Copy that, and then I'm going to create a function right below my fetch messages function, private func. Now we're going to call it database manager. It's a singleton, so we can use our shared. and then updated message publisher and dot again, and then we want to say receive on, you want to receive on dispatch queue.main. This is on the main thread. Since this will update our UI, it's really important to receive this on the main thread. So this is a completion. We could just leave this part blank, and messages, we'll say self.messages equal messages, and then we want to say self.tableview.reload data. One thing we haven't done either is we need to call store in, and then this is why we brought in the tokens. I forgot about that part. Now we run the application. All right, it loads up, and now I have a message with a whole bunch of numbers. Just send it. Oh, there it goes, and it's set here because in our application we haven't set it to order it by the recent message, and we'll do that right now actually, and we'll limit this. We'll add some changes. So what you can add to your collection is you can add order by, and in our project we have a created at, which is a timestamp, and we'll say false. And something cool that you can do is add a limit as well, and this limits the amount of cells you'll see. So we'll do 10, and I'm just gonna copy and paste this into the app, into right here. Leave it at 25 for now. So I'm gonna run that. Oh, I see what it's doing. So this, the way we did it is we ordered it in descending order, but it's grabbing the top 25. So let's reverse the order. True. And I think in our application, this is gonna make the most recent ones pop up at the top, but there's a way we can fix that. All right, now I'm gonna send a message from my device. Boom, it pops up at the top, and I can't spell. There's a typo. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Gosh darn it. We're gonna create a helper function to help us reverse this message array that we have. So func reverse message array. And actually, we don't even need to create a helper function because we can just call reversed, and we can call reverse here. Run that. There we go. And now let's test it when I send a message. Hey, and on my device it's not working. Well, on your device it shouldn't work either if you have it, because you have to run it again and get the new code right on your device. But hey, I like it, right? And the only thing left though is like, let's add some more padding. Let's not do 10. Let's do 25. I did that for the video, the little video. You guys will probably see it. All right, so our app is almost finished. Like, we're almost there. Right now I just switched to light mode to make sure there's nothing crazy going on. I'm gonna switch back, and something to note is if you do Command K, our nav bar doesn't have a background color, so it's transparent. We can fix that very quickly by going here, navigation controller, nav bar, background color. What should we go with? Let's try system background. Oh, that's good. Now when you scroll up, it doesn't. Well, actually, let's try it again. So Command K, all right, yeah. So it's working in light mode, and in dark mode, it's also working. Now our app is fairly set. Like, you guys can maybe get rid of the scroll bar if you don't like it. The only thing I'm gonna add is in our SignIn ViewController, let's add a welcome label, UI label, and we'll set this equal to label equal UI label. Label.translate auto resizing equal to false. Return label. Label.font. Yeah, label.font equals system font. 264. Do bold. Do text. Welcome. Please sign in. And last thing I want to do, number of lines equal to 0. Okay, let's add this to the subview. View.add subview label. Welcome label. Alright, so for the text we did welcome, please sign in. We can add an emoji. Command control space. Do a little smiley face. Nope. Command control space. Smiley face. There we go. And then last thing is, oh, number of lines equal to 0. Let's add it to our subview here. View.add subview. Welcome label. Top anchor. Go to view.top anchor. Welcome label. Leading anchor equal to constraint view.leading anchor. Welcome label dot trailing anchor. No. Now we just want to set a height. Set this equal to 300. And let's set a width and a height for our button. I think we can, right? Say dot width, let's go 300. Actually, let's do like 250. Google button, then height. For height, let's do 80. And last thing I want to do for the Google button, just to make it look nicer, let's add a corner radius. I don't know if we can. Layer dot corner radius. Yeah, it looks like we can. And our label, background color, let's do system blue. Run this. Forgot the comma. Let's center the text. Label dot text alignment center. Can we make the button bigger? Let's run that. All right, there we go. It looks like we can't change the height, but the button looks good. Sound looks good. You guys can change this as much as you want. Let's try to sign in. Make sure this flow is still working. We click sign in. We do the flip. The flip is nice. Oh, the one thing on sign in, let's scroll to the bottom. So fetch here in our reload. Actually, let's create a function, a little helper function called. Where should we place this? Let's place it at the bottom. Actually, no, I don't know. Let's just place it here. Private func reload chat room. Place this in here, and we're gonna call it in here. The reason I wrote this in a function is because every time we reload our table view, we're gonna want to scroll to the bottom, just in case there is enough messages where there's more than, I don't know how many you need to get there, but just in case. And in here we would do reload chat room, and that way we don't have to rewrite all our code. Yeah, because in the fetch message, now when we fetch our messages, we're gonna reload our data and scroll to the bottom. So let's run this. It loads up and it scrolls right to the bottom. Let's sign out and sign back in. The animation is nice, man. I can't get enough of it. It's just a little flip. Loads up. Oh, and dang, that was quick. I didn't even see it scroll to the bottom. I thought it was something wrong. But now we fully finished the course. Shout out to y'all if you made it this far. Oof. I mean, it was a journey, and it's been fun, right? Like, it's a cool app. You can upload this to test flight and like share with your friends, and you guys can have a little chat room and just go crazy, right? No one can stop you now. But all right, yeah, I appreciate you if you made it this far. Check out the channel, like, subscribe, comment, maybe dislike it if you didn't like it, man. It's okay. Check me out on Twitter. Consistency is the key, so just keep at it. Keep chipping at that rock. You'll get there, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
I'm riding between it all in this perfect play. I'm a piece of the puzzle, I'm a fit where you need me, baby.